Welcome. Today we have Shawn Murray with us to discuss developing and improving your capabilities for digital collections. Shawn is the Senior Program Manager at Bridgeforce and is a key driver of change for financial services clients and has also previously been a banker. Shawn, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me today. Excited to be here.
Great, great. I'd like to start with a quick question, just to level set. What do you mean by digital collections?
It's a great question because it can mean different things to different people. It's a pretty broad term. What we mean when we talk about digital collections for this purpose is really the expansion of your outreach channels to include email, SMS, and in some cases chat, but also replicating that non-human interaction when you're helping customers resolve their past due balances or helping them when they have financial needs to work to get set up on a program, hardship program.
Good, good. Okay, great. Thank you. With that understanding, if I was a banker, I'm very likely to need a vendor to do this, and I do not want to make a mistake. So how would I pick the right vendor?
Great. Another great question. So the first thing you need to understand is what is your vision of your end state in this with digital collections. Once you understand that, you really will then go through an RFP process. That RFP process is going to include your requirements. You'll identify some key vendors, and there's a lot out there. But then you'll send that RFP process out, collect your responses, and then you go through that evaluation process. The evaluation process is going to include demos where you're going to actually see the system in place. And our recommendation is always to ask your vendors to replicate the use cases that you're actually going to be using the system for when you use the demo.
Good, good. All right, well, thank you. With so many vendors, as you say, offering digital collections, what is the best approach to find the vendor that really is like the best fit for me, my bank, my strategy?
Yeah, so what we tend to do is we go through a digital assessment, a digital readiness assessment with clients, because you're right, not every vendor is going to fit every client. And I'll give you an example. There's some clients who want to have full autonomy of their strategies, the messaging that goes out, and they're going to be making a lot of changes. Well, that is a very specific vendor that allows that. There's also clients who want to have the vendor manage all that. And they just want to manage that through a change process. That's another type of vendor. So when you go through this digital readiness assessment, you ask all of these questions. How do you want to manage the system ongoing? Do you want to have your own staff do it? What types of strategies are you looking to implement? How are you going to organize your operations around all of this? And all of that information will help feed the requirements. And then those requirements will ultimately help choose the right vendor for you.
Great, great. The readiness makes a lot of sense. So after the vendor evaluation, after the readiness that you just described, we're often very excited to move into implementation. What are your recommendations for a successful implementation?
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, our next webinar on April 28th is going to hit this topic right on. But a recommendation, because we do see clients are sometimes too eager to move right into this. So you really want to make sure you have the right experience at the table. You're going to need to have line of business experience, so people who can speak about collections, how it operates today in your organization. And then you're going to definitely need the IT representation. In the middle, there needs to be somebody who can translate across both spectrums. And that's actually how that's one of Bridgeforce's founding principles, is bridging that gap between IT and ops.
Great. So what you mentioned a webinar. When again is that?
The webinar is April 28th at 11:30 Eastern time. It's a 30-minute webinar. Myself and my colleague, Mike Olson, will actually be talking through tangible project management strategies. And what we're also going to talk about is 10 blind spots, as we call it, that waste time and increase cost. So through our experience, we've identified 10 items that we've come across that we want to just share with the industry to help others avoid running across these and really prepare in advance before that, because they are time stealers.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Shawn. I appreciate you taking the time to discuss some key insights for bankers who are building or improving their digital collections operations and performance. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great. In closing, thank you for joining us today. If you have any more questions for Shawn or would like to know more about the Bridgeforce webinar, please see the links in his bio.